Hello, I'm Jim Cornwall, and this is the WalkingPost.com podcast. WalkingPost.com is the news website dedicated to walking, with all the latest on books, gear, festivals, trails, health, events, fitness, and more. This podcast is number 50 and it's going live on May the 1st. My son's doing his work experience with me this week, which is fun, and we were filming in Northern Ireland for a couple of days, and had some interesting encounters, such as finding a staff member in a large supermarket who didn't know what a samosa was, and a bus driver who told us that the next bus we needed wasn't for almost 2 hours. So we started walking to the train station, only for the bus we wanted to drive right by us. And the guy in a coffee shop who, when I asked for a decaf, insisted that that didn't class as coffee. So, some surreal moments, and some amazing scenery. Let's get to May the 1st. For some reason, it's National No Pants Day, so we're not going to go there. It is National Space Day and Learn to Ride a Bike Day. It's Phone in Sick Day, and of course it's May Day, and it's Doodle Dog Day. My dog isn't very good at doodling or writing. It's the day in 1956 the polio vaccine became public, and the day Cuba became a socialist country in 1961. For birthdays, considering this is a podcast that's listened to by people in more than 20 countries, I couldn't really find anyone with universal appeal, although maybe the singers Judy Collins and Rita Coolidge would qualify, and Vincent van Gogh's younger brother Theo. I visited the graveyard the two brothers are in France. It's a very, very short day trip from Paris. In fact, you can get there in less than an hour on the train, so definitely a trip worth taking. It's a beautiful little village, and of course there are references to Vincent and his paintings everywhere. Last time, our guest was Ashley Katzenbach, a doctor of physical therapy and owner of Cape Concierge Physical Therapy, talking about Tai Chi walking, among other things. This week, the subject is the Ice Age Trail in Wisconsin, with Melissa Pyrrhic from the Ice Age Trail Alliance. Before we get going, if you do have news, guest ideas, or even subjects to cover or comments, or you want to advertise, please get in touch via walkingpost.com or just email me at jim@walkingpost.com. Alright, let's go through some of the headlines of the news articles you may have missed over on walkingpost.com this past week. A Norwegian outdoor brand is looking for a hiking ambassador. A trail in British Columbia, Canada continues to grow, and St. Helena has launched a series of postbox walks on the Outdoor Active app. Peak Performance has introduced a new hiking jacket. RAB launched new clothing with UV protection and heat management for the mountains, and the first Jane Goodall Hike for Hope is taking place in Canada. Hiking guides in Georgia are being trained. There are new trails in Galway City, and you can read all of these and more at walkingpost.com. Right, to this week's conversation. There are 11 national scenic trails in the US, ranging from 65 miles to 4,600 miles. Only 3 of them are restricted to one state, and one of those is the Ice Age Trail in Wisconsin. Embarrassingly, I've walked on a part of it and didn't even know that I had until this interview. Today we're chatting with Melissa Pyrrhic from the Ice Age Trail Alliance, the group that helps conserve, maintain and promote the trail. Hi Melissa, great to have you with us today. Maybe first we could set the scene and you could tell me all about the Ice Age Trail.
So the Ice Age Trail is one of the United States' 11 national scenic trails. So, most people have heard of the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide Trail. There are other trails, and the Ice Age Trail is one of them. It is a 1,200-mile designated footpath, and it's located entirely within the state of Wisconsin. So people will think about that and be like, there's no way you can have a 1,200-mile footpath. Well, the 2 endpoints for the trail, one is on the west side of the state on the Minnesota border, and then the other endpoint is in Sturgeon Bay, which if you look at the map of the state of Wisconsin, there's kind of this finger that jets out into Lake Michigan. And so the trail ends in Sturgeon Bay. But then along the way, it drops down nearly to the Wisconsin-Illinois border. Its southernmost point is in Janesville. So the path of the trail kind of marks where the end of the last glaciation occurred. The glaciers stopped, and so the path of the trail follows the border of where the glaciers stopped. So there is a ton of glacial landforms along the trail, and it's a very geologically and glacially significant things happened along the path of the trail.
Is it one of those trails that you can do?
Yeah.
People do it west to east or east to west? Can you do either?
Yeah, we do get, I would say, maybe 30 to 40 through hikers a year. So, which is like pales in comparison again to the number of through hikers that are, say, on the Appalachian Trail, right? I think they get like 100 people that try and through hike the trail. So we have, about 30 to 40 through hikers a year. We have a ton of segment hikers though. So people that just come for a weekend, a day, a week. They will come up and just do stretches of the trail. One of the things that kind of makes our trail unique is that it is so accessible. The trail goes through or near more than 100 different communities. So the community connection was really important to the people who first envisioned the trail. It's like what makes Wisconsin unique are all of these tiny little communities. So you really get a sense of the state and the people that live here.
So what's the Ice Age Trail Alliance?
Yeah, so the Ice Age Trail Alliance is the nonprofit volunteer and member organization that supports the Ice Age Trail. So the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, the National Park Service, and then the Ice Age Trail Alliance all work together to manage the trail. We organize all of the volunteers who conserve, create, maintain, and promote the trail. So we organize the volunteer efforts that actually put new tread in the ground, who go out after storms and clear the trail of downed trees. The volunteers that are building rock walls to, support the tread. People who go out and spread awareness about the trail. So those volunteers are all organized through the Alliance office.
And how did you come to be involved with it? Because I guess you were hiking it before you were involved with it.
Yeah, so I have pretty much lived in Wisconsin my whole life. Actually, the Ice Age Trail was designated a National Scenic Trail in 1980. My parents moved here in 1978. So I've been in Wisconsin pretty much the entire time, the Ice Age Trail has been a National Scenic Trail. And I would see signs actually on my way to work. So twice a day, there and back, I would drive by these big brown signs that are on the side of the highway that say Ice Age National Scenic Trail. And I just never really thought about what the trail was or what that was. In December of 2019, I decided that I was going to take up hiking. Wisconsin winters get pretty long and I don't want to ski anymore. And so I decided I'm going to start hiking. And I had this book on my shelf that was 60 hikes within 60 miles of Madison. So Madison is close by where I live. Picked up the book and I was like, okay, I'm just going to start hiking. And so on my third hike, took me to this area only about 15 minutes from my house called the Brooklyn Wildlife Area. And I went on a hike and it was a 3-mile hike and it was lovely. Snow had just fallen and there was this little pine grove that you walk through and there was some boardwalk and it was just a lot of variety. And I just really, really enjoyed my hike. And I saw the sign Ice Age Trail. And so I got back into my car, I got my phone and I Googled Ice Age Trail. What is it? And lo and behold, I discovered that it's this 1,200-mile trail and it goes through the whole state of Wisconsin. And my first thought was, how did I not know about this? This is incredible. I want to start hiking. So I ditch my book and I just start finding all of these segments of Ice Age Trail that are nearby. And one night I was trying to plan my next day's hike. And I was sitting in my bed and I knew Brooklyn Wildlife was, over here. And then I knew this other segment of trail was over by this dog park where I take my dogs. But I couldn't figure out where the trail connected the two. And I was looking at this map that's on the website, and I drill down and I discover that directly behind my house, my backyard backed up to a street. On the other side of the street, there was a bike trail. That bike trail coincides with the Ice Age Trail. I had lived in that house for 15 years, and I never knew the Ice Age Trail was there. So the next morning, I get out of bed and I go to the trail and I see the blaze. The Ice Age Trail is marked by a yellow rectangle. I see the blaze for the very first time. I had hiked on this trail probably 1,000 times, like taking my dogs on walks, bike riding on it, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is the trail. So 2020 hits and I all of a sudden have all sorts of free time. That's how I'm spending my weekends. I just really become obsessed with the trail. Started telling my family and friends about this amazing thing that's here. It's taking me to all these amazing places. And, fast forward a few months and I had become friends on Facebook with, the Ice Age Trail group page. I was really into it. And the Ice Age Trail Alliance posted that they were looking for a marketing director. And so I applied. And I feel like, I'm kind of the typical person here in Wisconsin that knew nothing about the trail. And now, I discovered it and I love it. And I'm so thankful for the trail.
Is it an easy sell to people from Wisconsin that don't know about it?
I think it is. I always tell people, well, first of all, so the trail is a bit unique when you compare it to, the other national scenic trails, which really you can't compare national scenic trails because they're all so different. But our trail runs through a variety of state land, federal land, private land. It coincides with some bike trails in places. So people don't necessarily understand the extent of the trail. So they might think, oh, the Ice Age Trail, yeah, that runs through my community. I see the blazes. I thought that was just a village thing or a county thing. But kind of when they realize, oh, the extent of it, it's pretty eye-opening. But what we know to be true is once someone discovers the trail, they start hiking the bits that are closest to wherever they live. Then they start going out more and they just want to see the whole thing. So that's pretty cool. And then once you see the whole thing, you can become a 1,000-miler. You fill out basically an application that kind of just proves that you hiked the trail. And, so you're a 1,000-miler. Then people tend to want to give back because they've had such an incredible experience. They know that this is volunteer created. And so we have a whole bunch of hikers that then start volunteering on the trail to create and maintain it, which I think is really, really cool too.
And I guess having lived in different parts of Canada and the US, people's perception of different states, they think that they know a bit about most of the states, but don't really. Is there a perception that it's a trail that's similar from beginning to end?
I think, yes, the one thing we hear over and over from people is, I never knew Wisconsin was this beautiful. The trail honestly takes you to some of the most beautiful places in the state. And what's kind of interesting when you look at like the state tourism agency, Travel Wisconsin, they tend to show the pictures of the same locations again and again. We have a really spectacular park here in the state called Devil's Lake. It's magnificent. The trail actually runs about 10 miles through the park, but you see pictures of Devil's Lake all the time on materials. And if like Travel Wisconsin was to come to Scotland, you would see pictures of Devil's Lake. But there are so many other spectacular places in the state that you find when you walk on the Ice Age Trail. So yeah, so people by and far always comment, I never knew Wisconsin was this beautiful. But then we've had the thru hikers who've had the insights of, you really have 3 different types of trail here. Because the trail up north, so if you start at the western terminus by the Minnesota border, the trail has a very Northwoods feel. So it's very rugged forest. You're walking through the Shawanigan National Forest, a lot of county forests up there. So it's a rugged, woodsy trail where dispersed camping is allowed, in most of these places. So you can just put a tent down wherever. Then the trail it takes a turn and it starts going through the center of the state. And you start going through the Central Sands area. The topography kind of changes and it's different. It's really neat. You're running a few of the segments run right alongside the Wisconsin River, a little rocky, but sandy, and it's just totally different. Then you get down to where I am in the southern part of the state and you start getting into prairies. And volunteers around here have been very focused on restoring prairies to their native habitats, right? So we had a lot of agricultural land. And so a lot of the farms now are being turned back into prairies. So you just walk through the most spectacular prairies, come summertime, it's, all the gold flowers and then the blue and the purples come out. I mean, it is just spectacular for as long as you can see. Then as you keep heading east, you get into the Kettle Moraine, which this is the part of the state where the trail first kind of was put down, was the Kettle Moraine area. And it is rolling hills and it's kind of rocky. And kettles are dips in the land that the glaciers form. So they're like little ponds everywhere. Some of them are filled, some are not. But it gets very, very up and down these rolling hills, which is unlike prairie areas. And then you keep going up on the eastern part of the state. And at one point, it's like you're walking alongside the ocean because you're on a beach on Lake Michigan, and it is spectacular and beautiful, and you have sand dunes. So there's a ton of variety on the trail.
And are there any urban areas, and that sort of how much road is there? Is it like, or is it all off-road?
So we consider ourselves a trail in progress. The trail is 711.5 miles blazed. So blazed, complete and blazed. So again, the yellow blaze gets put up when we're done with a segment of trail. So that leaves about, 500-ish miles that we still have to complete. So there is a fair amount of road walk, but the Alliance has set out a suggested path of road walks so that you're walking on kind of idyllic country roads. You're walking past really beautiful farms. The suggested path is not always the shortest path between completed segments, but it's suggested either because it's a safe hike compared to if we put you on a busy highway, but it also offers some sort of glacial significance. So usually you can see glacial landforms, or there's just some kind of significance to the path. I have a great appreciation for road walks. I've done some segments, during the winter in a foot of snow, and you're kind of post-holing through, and kind of segments that take you an hour a mile. And when you hit that road walk, you're really, really appreciative of just a nice flat road. I've also hiked segments during the 100-degree days in the summer, which is crazy. But then you get on a road and all of a sudden you go by farmer's field who's watering. So you get to kind of walk through the big giant watering system. So it's nice. But the trail itself does go through or near about 100 communities. Again, many of these are very small communities. Most have a bar, though. We had some through hikers come through a couple of years ago, and they dubbed this the pub crawl through hike because every single day they were able to stop and get a beer at an establishment. The state of Wisconsin has, I don't know, more than 2,000 bars or something like that. So you're never very far from a place to cool down and get a beer or water during the summer. Yeah, so there are some urban areas. The trail goes through the city of Janesville, which is close to the Illinois border. It's a lovely walk. The trail goes along kind of the municipal path in Janesville, but you go through arboretums and gardens, and it's really, really lovely. And it's great too for people, that might have accessibility issues or mobility issues. There's a guaranteed 10 miles of nice flat path to follow. And we go through just a tiny bit of Madison. Yeah, just a lot of really lovely communities.
You mentioned it's a work in progress. Is the length and the actual route, is that set, or are you still looking to extend it or find other parts for it?
It will always be in Wisconsin. We're not going to extend it beyond the borders. And the route is pretty set. We have a corridor that we follow, and it's usually like a 1 to 3 mile kind of swath of land where, again, the glaciers ended, so we know we'd like to put the trail within this area. But right now it's a matter of getting the agreements to put the trail on protected land. So that's part of what the Alliance does every day, is works on trying to get agreements for the land, whether it's purchasing or having people donate easements to us.
And how much of the trail have you done so far?
I am at over 600 miles. It is my goal to be a 1,000 miler. Unfortunately, my job takes up a lot of time on the weekends sometimes. I'll go to places I've never hiked, but I have to do, help work an event or do something. So, yeah, there's this little curse. Once you start working for the Alliance, your number of hiking miles plummets. I was able to get out this winter a few times and do some hiking, and I'm going to be trying to get out end of May, get more trail done. I have lots to do, but
Oh,
it's
no.
always so exciting to me. I get really excited that I get to go do a segment. Like last fall, I finally made it to this community of Two Rivers and I hiked the trail there, and it was so cute. And Two Rivers was amazing. The trail was great. And I just kept thinking, how has it taken me, my whole life to get to Two Rivers, Wisconsin? I love Two Rivers.
I would imagine that it's almost like having four trails because if you were to do it in the winter, it would be an entirely different experience to the summer or the fall.
It absolutely is. Yeah, I keep telling people there's three segments that I've hiked during the winter right now that I have a very bad taste in my mouth because of the conditions. So one day when I finish my 1,000 miler journey, I always say I'm going to do a redemption tour and go back and hit these other segments. One of the segments that I did not enjoy because of the winter conditions is called Chippewa Moraine. And it's kind of in the northern part of the trail. And that usually ranks as hikers like top three segments that they hiked because it's so beautiful. But nope, it was not very beautiful the day I did it. But we do have hikers. We have a pair of hikers who perpetually hike the trail. They are on their 10th and 7th go round. This is just what they do. It's their hobby, but they change it up every time they go. It's like, okay, we hike this segment during the winter. This time we're going to do it during the summer, fall, spring. So it's really pretty just to do it again and again. And I always tell people the longer it takes to become a 1,000 miler, the more actual trail you'll have to hike because the past few years we've added like 15 miles of trail. So we're closing those gaps. So someone who hiked the trail, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it's a substantially different trail now, which is also cool. And I think that's why people keep coming back.
That one that you mentioned is one that I've done when I was in Wisconsin. So it
Oh,
was,
really?
yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Did you even know you were on the Ice Age Trail?
No, no, but I
No.
was just doing a tour of the Great Lakes, so it was just, okay, this is recommended as a hike. What are some highlights for you of that trail?
Like I said, so Two Rivers comes to mind. Two Rivers, which is right near the lake. I was able to walk this, it's an urban segment. So you're kind of on sidewalks going through a neighborhood, but you see these really cute, quaint houses. And we stayed at a really great hotel that was right on the trail. And then we did an excursion off trail and went and visited an alpaca farm. So that's the other fun thing is that you can hike, you can take nice half day 6-hour hike, and then you can go and do excursions when you're near the communities. So I like that. I have found the best ice cream place along the trail down in a community called Milton. They make giant soft serve ice cream cones that you get for like $2. It's amazing. And if it wasn't for the trail, I never would have found this place. I saw a porcupine, which is I like to tell people when you see a porcupine, you've officially become an Ice Age trail hiker. And that was up north in the north woodsy part of the trail. So that was really cool the day I saw the porcupine. I think just the friends I've made hiking, I started hiking all by myself. And I ended up looking at things on Facebook and I joined a group of hikers that were kind of hiking nearby. And I remember I told my kids, I'm going to go meet and go hiking. And they were like, who are you going hiking with? I'm like, I don't know, just some people. And they thought for sure I was going to get kidnapped. I'm like, no, they're Ice Age trail hikers. It's going to be great. And it was. So I found a great community of like-minded people along the trail. And, it takes a certain kind of person to want to walk along a country road in 90-degree heat during the summer. But it's super fun and just the conversations you have. Yeah, the people you meet. I love when we stop at a bar to take a break and get to talk about the trail and everybody's like, you're doing what? It's fun to open people's eyes to the trail. Plus, yeah, you just see amazing things. There's this segment that runs along the Wisconsin River called the Turtle Rock segment, and you kind of have to ramble over rocks. And the day I did it, it was early December. It wasn't super cold. We had maybe a half inch of snow the night before. It was kind of overcast when we started, but then the sun started coming out and the snow sparkled all over. And so you're walking along this kind of rocky path with the river in the background. And it was just really, really magical. And I love those moments because it seems every hike I take, there's some kind of special moment on the trail. And I love that.
In your position in marketing, is it easy to figure out how many people use this trail, whether it's for the 1,000 miles or just day use?
Yeah, so we worked with a research group out of one of the universities, and we did a user study back in 2023, compiling different data. They came up with the figure of 4.65 million users a year, which we think is pretty darn accurate. Again, you think about the communities that the trail runs through. This is the trail that people take their dogs on a walk every night or where they go for a morning run. So it's those repetitive uses every day that also counts into that. But the trail is within 30 miles of 78% of residents of the state. So we are, again, proximity is to our advantage here. So we do get a lot of daily users and then segment hikers. We're not the giant through hiking trail, but that's okay by us.
How far afield does it attract people from? Do you get people from out of state? And if so, how have they heard about it?
Yeah, we get a lot of people come up from Northern Illinois, so Chicago up, lots of people. We get a lot of people from Minnesota, which makes sense. And then, Michigan, Lake Michigan kind of, separates us a bit. So, but we do get some people from Lake Michigan, although Michigan also has the North Country Trail that splits the state there. But we also get people, that will come here on vacation, from other states as well, and from Europe. So we actually had a couple from Germany that came, I think it was last summer, maybe the summer before. This couple was wanting to go on a long hike in the United States. They looked at, the bigger trails, the Continental Divide, Pacific Crest, but they settled on the Ice Age Trail because it was close to community, because they were not super comfortable going out into the wilderness. They wanted to be able to have that mix of, okay, we're going to be in the middle of a national forest, but we still won't be super far away. So if anything happens, we can always get a ride. And I think that's reasonable. You do not have to go on an adventure of a lifetime to hike the Ice Age Trail. But last year we did have a man from Japan came, and he generated quite a little following on social media. Masa, he had hiked other trails, so he is a hiker. But yeah, he generated quite a bit of fanfare. And then we also had a guy from the Netherlands on the trail at the same time as him. So we get this handful of hikers, because there's this trend amongst the through hikers that they want to do all 11 scenic trails. So we tend to get those people that, okay, you're my 8th trail to do or my 10th trail. And a few years ago, we had a through hiker named Apple Pie, and she became the first woman to finish all 11 scenic trails, and she finished on the Ice Age Trail. So that was pretty fun.
Is it well known as a trail? I mean, your own experience would suggest that maybe it isn't.
Yeah, it's not super well known. I think it's growing. We've had a couple articles that have appeared in Backpacker Magazine and Outside Magazine, and a couple of through hikers have told us that the Ice Age Trail now is what the Appalachian Trail was in the 70s. So it's on the cusp of blowing wide open, I guess. But we're okay though with how it is. We like our community. I don't think we ever desire to have, 100 people starting out on a through hike at the same time. But it is interesting when you talk to the through hikers who have only ever done the Appalachian Trail tend to have a hard time on the Ice Age Trail. If you've done the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, gotten other trails under your belt, then you do fine on the Ice Age Trail. But I was talking to a thru hiker about that, and he said that that's because the Appalachian Trail breeds purity. The Appalachian Trail is the only one of the National Scenic Trails that is complete in that there's no road walk on it. The Appalachian Trail also has shelters every, 7 or 8 miles, and none of the other trails have that. So if you've only hiked the Appalachian Trail and you're used to this community of hiking support around you, you're not going to find that on the Ice Age Trail. You'll be lucky if you encounter another thru hiker. And sometimes people can hike for days without encountering another person, just depending on what season they're hiking in. And we do have challenges, right? There's road walk. We have camping challenges. There's places where you really have to get smart about your logistics and how far you're going to walk. So I always tell people those are our challenges. We don't have mountains on the Ice Age Trail. We don't really have wild animals that are going to kill you on the Ice Age Trail, but we do have camping logistics, and water access sometimes too is tricky. The Ice Age Trail is what it is, and we're very proud of it. And we have a very supportive community, and our community takes a lot of pride in the trail, from the maintainers to the people who host the trail. Everybody just wants everyone who hikes the trail to have a good time on it. We have an incredible network of trail angels. I hear stories about a hiker who, was going to get stranded in a storm. He posted on Facebook, and someone drove from 2 hours away to pick him up, took him back home, for a couple of days to let these storms pass through, took him all around Green Bay, showed him Lambeau Field where the Packers play, and then dropped him back off at the spot they picked him up.
I can't think of any states that don't have some great hikes, and Wisconsin is definitely beautiful. I've only ever hiked there in the summer, and even then not much, but I imagine the spring and fall are really amazing. Every conversation I have, I just want to go there and hike. So that'll just about do it for this week. Still great weather here in this part of Scotland. It seems like the end of April and May are the best months here now. The hills are alive, not with the sound of music, but the yellow of gorse. And it's everywhere this year. So hopefully we'll get more hiking in the rest of this week, and we're trying to get lots of work done while the weather is good. If you do have news or suggestions for podcast guests, please do get in touch through jim@walkingpost.com. We're always looking for guests, whether it's a new trail, a new book, walking festivals, or someone who's done an amazing, unusual, or interesting walk. So I hope you enjoyed this week's walkingpost.com podcast, and I hope that you have a great week, hopefully with a walk somewhere, whether it's Wisconsin, Wisbech, or Ouistreham, which is in Morocco, in case you were wondering. Until next time, happy trails! Walking Post from walkingpost.com is an Air Coastal Media Limited production.